And you want to know what was really a trip? There was a tarantula right by him. And I ain't lying. What a weekend, man. Let me just go ahead and tell you this quick story. Two things happened to me in the same day. The other day blew me away, but it shows the importance of still being healthy well into your 60s, 70s, and 80s. And it starts with what you do today. So I was at a resort with my girl, and we're sitting there, and it was this couple, I'm going to call them elderly. They're probably, I'm going to guess, were in their 70s. And so they stood up, and the woman was actually in better mobile shape than the man, although she was, relatively heavy, but, she was still able to move around and walk. So they stood up, and they were going to move their Chase Lounger, and as they're trying to lift it, they were going over some rocks. Y'all know how hot it is in the AZ, yo. So they're going over some rocks, and all I heard was, oh, and my girl actually heard the thud. And, there my man was, down, face on the rocks. The rocks were hot. He started bleeding from his forehead, and his wife was thinking that he could do it. She was thinking, oh, he's going to be strong enough to still lift this and move. But he didn't have the mobility, nor did he have the strength. And he had a lot of health ailments. He was on Coumadin. A lot of things were going on. And when he fell down, blood was trickling down. I went up, helped him get up. My girl's a nurse, so, we ended up kind of being the, dynamic duo helping, well, later on be two people that day within a matter of like 3-4 hours, because helped this guy up. She started treating his injuries, getting the bleeding to stop. But the thing about it was, no matter how old he was, his wife still expected him to be strong enough and move that doggone chair with her. And what was really messed up, and I mean, no shade on her, but it just goes to show, she kept saying, I knew I shouldn't have asked him to do it. I knew I shouldn't have asked him to do it. But you know what? That woman still thought that her Superman, if you're black, her Black Panther, could still move that chair. No matter what his health ailments were, no matter how weak and frail he was, she still figured, my husband can at least help me move this. And he wasn't. And of course, he goes down, he's embarrassed, she's embarrassed, and, thankfully, it turned out to be okay. A few hours later, there's another guy. Someone comes over to us, and because they had heard about what happened earlier, they came over to my girl and was like, hey, can you go treat a guy? We think he's having a stroke. Now, they had already called emergency services, and this guy, again, was probably, I'm going to guess, maybe in his 70s. And not in bad shape at all, but, he had some major health ailments. We think that maybe he was dehydrated. Again, my girl was doing all of her assessment protocol, looking at his strength, what's his heart rate, blood pressure, etc. What other things could have possibly gone on. And she actually administered treatment until the fire department arrived. Again, this guy, he was there by himself, and yet he had a lot of previous health conditions that now made treating him a lot more complex. Because since he had past heart problems, well, was that what was going on? Or was it that he was, I don't want to say just dehydrated, but it was at least a lot easier to get some fluid in him than to think that now his heart was failing and the dude was having a stroke. And you want to know what was really a trip? There was a tarantula right by him. And I ain't lying. So while we walked over there, then, now, my girl, she ain't scared of, it's like, all right, the guy bleeding, we're gonna help him, we help him. But when she saw that tarantula, oh yeah, she started freaking out. And so another guy came over there, had his shoe, and I'm thinking like, oh, she went over there and really saw, man, maybe my man is passing away. And when I kind of heard her freaking, because she went over there before I did, and turned out my man pulled up a shoe, and there was this big old brown tarantula on it. And so they went and took the tarantula. He pulled the tarantula out, put it over in the rocks. I learned something about the behavior of tarantulas. Quick side note, that the tarantula actually got away from the sun and wanted to be in the shade. So it went under a rock, and then it kind of just went out. And all you saw were like these finger-like projections, nice and curled up. Yeah, I ain't gonna be walking through those rocks again barefoot. not even sandals. But yeah, anyway, it's a tarantula. I mean, I know they are a lot more. They look more fierce than they actually, are. But still wasn't cool. But here was the funny, well, not the funny, but the messed up part about the rumor mill. Because the other people were around, then it was like, well, they heard that he was bitten by a tarantula. They heard the tarantula was on him. They heard that the tarantula was near him. Now, all we knew is that the tarantula was on the ground. When my girl walked up, she saw the tarantula on the ground. Somebody said the tarantula was on him. So now that adds a new thing. It's like, okay, did he get bit by a tarantula and started having some kind of reaction? Who knows? But one thing that's for sure, with everything that was happening and with his health, I'm glad he was out there. I hope he's an avid exerciser, and I hope that actually helps. But it was still real interesting to see that, a lot of things that happen with our hearts and, when we have to be on various medications, etc., those are conditions that we could help now. Because when we get older, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? And so then we get older, and then it's a matter of, well, now major things happen. Now you do have a major strength loss. Now when you get injured, you don't bounce back. Now, we think about, oh, you have a fall, you break a hip. This is the second older person that I've watched fall, especially out here in Arizona. When you fall on that concrete, not only is it unforgiving because it's concrete, but it's hot. You all have watched the commercials where people like cooking stuff on the concrete or on a car because of how hot the pavement is. So that's another reason why now you need to be able to get off of whatever you have fallen on top of. Imagine putting your hand on a hot stove and not having the strength to move it up. And obviously it's not that bad, but it's very similar. And so people, not only do they suffer cuts and bruises and scrapes, but then they also get burns from the pavement. And so, I just want you guys to think about that, and you ladies that may be listening and watching this, I want you to think about that. Your health that you have, I'm watching this CRV about to go off the road, and that's why my brother had to go ahead and get on past him. Because people like that, if they decide to be doing whatever, here it is, I'm recording the video, but there's a reason why I'm not holding my phone doing the video. Folks like that, yeah, I might not run administer services for them. But anyway, the main thing is, though, take care of your health. Do what you can now. Let me help you. I can help you put your routine together. I can help you with knowing how many carbs, how many proteins, how much fat. What should your caloric intake be? Maybe you do have some things going on with the doctor, and the doctor's just telling you, you need to be on a low-carb diet. Well, no duh. Thank you, doc. But what's a low-carb diet? If normally you're taking in 250 grams of carbohydrates, and you've never even monitored your carb intake, so really, what's a low-carb diet? Is a low-carb diet now 150 grams of carbohydrates? Or is a low-carb diet, 50? Now, actually, there's a difference between keto and what's considered a very low carbohydrate diet. Doctors may not tell you, and you may not know. Let me help you navigate that. And in some cases, as I have with some of my clients, I give them things to go ask their doctors. Check with your doctor and see how they feel about this. It's nothing I love more. I mean, you do love to hear your clients lost, 20 pounds or more, whatever. But you know what's good? When you hear your clients say, look, my A1C's dropped. My doctors are like, wow, you're doing great. Because they know most people, they don't have that drop. You can do that. I can help you do that. Sign up with me or DM me or email me at joinironfather@gmail.com. And let me help you get going. Because the work you do today is going to help you be able to lift yourself up off some hot pavement. It may be something that teaches you habits that, hey, we don't go lay out in the sun in 105-degree weather and we didn't hardly have any water that day. Because you now see your body in a different way. You know you have to take care of that machine. Let me help you do that.